Mike Gundy has rightfully said that getting down to 105 scholarship limit is definitely going to suck. But is it right that we instantaneously just sit down, shut up, show up to games, and embrace that suck?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we are partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 back in bonus bets if that $5 bet is a winner. Make sure that you get started today by going to FanDuel.com. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation that Mike Gundy recently had in regards to getting down to 105 scholarship, numerically speaking, of course, is going to be difficult. And he is right. It is going to suck. And at one point in time, I was predispositioned to just embrace the suck and keep on trucking. And I feel like to some degree we are also as a fan base. But Mike Gundy is right in the fact that getting down to 105 is going to be a problem. It is going to suck because anytime you have the advantage of numbers, 135, 140-ish players, it gives you a lot more flexibility in practices and what you can and cannot do. Now, typically, if you're going to go 135, 140 deep, you could be much more aggressive in practice, or you can pinpoint specific things in practice and have the scout team, work on a multitude of things. So that number is massively beneficial, not to mention a place like Oklahoma State prides itself on our ability to get walk-ons, preferred walk-ons, turn them into starters, and potentially some NFL-level guys. So having some of those numbers be cut out, of course, it is going to suck. I think we can all agree with that. My problem isn't that. My problem is the fact that us as a fan base seemingly are so predispositioned to instantly just err on whatever that side is coming out from Mike Gundy. And so if you notice, he mentions that we have to get down to 105 and it's going to suck. And then we have a former commit decide that he's going to take his talents to UTSA instead of Stillwater, Oklahoma. And also, we get it. It's problematic. But the amount of people that have immediately gone to, well, he went to UTSA because of the scholarship limit, and this is on social media, and I have learned that not all of social media is indicative of the fan base. Thank you, Utah Nation. But at the same time, I don't care if it's 2%, 5%, 1%, 10%. Why do we still fall into the same trap of instantaneously blaming or passing blame off on the opposite party? For example, if we have somebody who decommits or decides that they're going to leave Oklahoma State, or they're going to transfer, or they're going to try to get out of their LOI, we have been so preconditioned over the years to say that guy's not loyal and true. He's not worthy. He's not going to be beneficial in the long run. Whenever we lose out on recruits a decent amount of time, we find a way to justify it, right? He wasn't going to fit in with this particular system, or he wasn't going to start for a couple of years, so on and so forth, or he was never loyal and true, or he wasn't good enough. And what I'm seeing now that Isaiah Tanner Butler has decided to go to UTSA is a lot of that. I mean, former Cowboy players are even in that same group of, well, he wasn't going to be beneficial, or he probably wasn't going to be good enough anyways. We need to dig ourselves out of a hole, and he's not going to be good enough to do it, and neither is Jordan Covington, and neither is Jason Queso Brooks. And I just have a problem with that. And perhaps it is because I do travel and I cover recruiting and 7-on-7 and get to have some of these conversations. So maybe I'm just a little closer to that side of it. But in that vein of these conversational pieces, Mike Gundy has to do a lot to kind of, reinvigorate the recruiting fan base out there as well. So whenever we have situations like this arise, I don't see it as a benefit for us as a fan base to automatically say, that kid's not good enough. That kid sucked. That kid wasn't going to play anyways. If he's going to UTSA, that just shows you that we cut him out of the way because he wasn't going to be good enough. But the problem is we say the same thing when somebody leaves or somebody gets kicked off the team. And to me, it's a problem. And to me, that is the biggest difficulty we're having in recruiting, is the disingenuous nature in which some of these things are passed off. And just like we've talked about previously, if you have somebody in your class like Landon Cleveland, David Kabongo, that can all kind of rally the troops and find a way to stick together as a crew, as a group of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 recruits or commits, that same thing is applicable to the recruiting process. So whenever you have an individual that gets a committable offer and then they commit, and then they're told that we're not going to be able to actually honor that scholarship, so we're going to have to remove that. And then we have another guy come down the pipeline and he's going to decide that he's going to go play somewhere else. Is it possible that one of these guys, two of these guys, a few of these guys had something come up that made them a roster limitation numerically? Sure. But it's also possible that we could find it completely plausible that the conversations being had amongst the recruits are not positive. We could pass this off as this is simply just another non-loyal and true, non-dedicated, non-work ethically driven individual that wasn't going to cut it in Stillwater. Sometimes that is applicable. But my issue is that it's built into us as a fan base over the last 20 years to automatically side on our coaches' side. It's very rare do we look introspectively and say, you know what, we probably didn't handle that well. It's not always the kids' fault, but we as a fan base are very, very good because of our predisposition nature to automatically side with the coaches and say that the player was the problem, the athlete was a problem, the parents were a problem, the trainers were problems, the high school coaches were problems. We never talk about our coaches being part of the problem. And I don't get it. I will never get it. Because Mike Gundy is okay calling out the fan base and saying that we are the problems in recruiting and the negativity in the stands is the reason we're having limitations in recruiting. And then stuff like this happens. And what do we automatically do? Say, Isaiah Tanner Butler, UTSA, he was never going to be good enough in Stillwater. We had to get down to our numbers, and he was never really committed to begin with because, he's fake and this and that and the other. That's what we're seeing. And I just do not understand how us as a fan base expects to ever be competitive in the CFP era if this is the way that we're going to continuously chastise the individuals who make decisions. Because the problem is we're going to have the same issue if Landon Cleveland or David Kabongo were to decide that they were going to transfer. What would 90% of the fan base say? Well, we didn't need him anyways. Obviously, they were part of the problem if they didn't want to be here. Clearly, they weren't going to be beneficial to the next season, or they would still be here. If they were loyal and true and gave a crap about their teammates or their coaches or the university, they would still be here. This is a completely different landscape. We cannot keep chastising these student athletes the way that we've been doing for the last 20 years. Because of social media and the fact that due to social media, these conversations are being had between recruits constantly. So the same conversations that are being had to entice somebody can be had to detract somebody, right? And just like you want a Jalen Beckley, you want a Landon Cleveland, you want a Gunnar Wilson to be calling people and say, hey, come with me to Stillwater. Come check this out. Come be a part of what we're developing in Stillwater. Come be a part of all that. The same conversations are had negatively. Right? And it's not just about Oklahoma State, but these kids have conversations with each other like, hey, dude, I just went on this recruiting trip to this random university. And then the other guy be like, oh, dude, I went there a few weeks ago, and this is what happened to me, and da-da-da-da-da. These kids can connect the dots, and they have more conversations with other people. And if enough people have enough negativity to say about somewhere, you're automatically out of the running. And if you have enough of that negativity that permeates to the high school coaching ranks, then those high school coaches are going to tell their kids, listen, you can go to O State. It's a good offer, but let me tell you why this school might be better for you. And part of it's because our fan base has been riding with the man, the myth, the mullet, the legend, the king that deserves a statue. He does. He is all of that. But we ride on everything thing that he says about recruiting or decommitments or letters of intent and this and that and the other, and we alienate people. There's not a lot. There's not an overabundance of wiggle room that we have in recruiting. So while the 105 limitation is going to suck, us having Stockholm Syndrome, just because we've been beat over the head for the last 20 years to just automatically accept that if a player decommits, gets out of his LOI, transfers, leaves, quits, whatever, that it's always his fault. That Oklahoma State didn't have a hand in it. Mike Gundy didn't have a hand in it. Casey Dunn didn't have a hand in it. And I'm trying to convey, okay, the little bitty sliver of recruiting that I get to do and get to help out with. The conversations about Oklahoma State because of things like this are not positive. And I think our fan base is is part of it because of this exact thing. Mike Gundy says we need to get down to 105. It's going to suck. The next day, we have somebody decide that he's going to go play for UTSA instead of Oklahoma State. And instead of saying, oh, crap, we're over in conference play, we're dead last place, it's not looking good, we're losing recruits, we're losing commits, we're kicking kids off the team, we're allowing kids to quit, we're starting the wrong people who clearly walk and jog on the field live during plays. But that kid's the problem. Or that kid. Jordan Covington, Isaiah Tanner Butler, Jason Queso Brooks, DeAndre Jackson. Like out of a decent number of these players, eventually, right, we have to get to a point where we're like, hold on, let's take a minute to make this make sense. For the last 20 years, we've been siding with Gundy every time we kick somebody off the team, or they don't show up, or they get suspended, whatever the case may be. And a decent amount of the time, it's probably justified. But there's also a significant number of times where it's not. And instead of finding out what happened or just being okay with something that may have transgressed along the way, we automatically go to pointing that the kid wasn't going to be good enough, or he wasn't designed to play here, or he wasn't going to start here, or he wasn't going to fit into the numbers, or he was going to be a problem, or whatever the case is, or his family dynamic isn't right. That's another thing that I do hear out on the recruiting trail is if you don't have the right family dynamic, then Mike Gundy's not going to recruit you anyways. We have some negative things in recruiting that we can fix. But as a fan base, perhaps we're part of the problem when we automatically do stuff like this and tell a kid, or not tell a kid, but point out that, oh, him leaving, it was meant to be. He wasn't going to fit in. He wasn't going to play. He wasn't going to start. He wasn't going to get squeezed into the right number. And it's not the reason we suck at recruiting. Okay? There's other factors. And we as a fan base, we just ignore them over and over and over. And it sucks. And now we suck. But you know what doesn't suck is having the right phone plan. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mint Mobile is here to save the day for you whenever it comes to your mobile plans. Guys, you know, you don't want to be stressing about being caught in between in limbo. And Mint Mobile is the best way for you to get your payments down to $15 a month. And it is premium wireless service. You don't have to get in a fight with a bobcat in a phone booth just to save some extra pennies here and there. With Mint Mobile, you can get $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan. It turns out, guys, it's very easy to get phenomenal wireless for only $15 a month. The hardest part is getting rid of your old boo thing, aka your old provider. To get started, all you got to do is go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. All of the 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. It'll be very easy for you to see, just like it'll be very easy for you to understand that switching to Mint Mobile and getting that 3 months of premium wireless service for only $15 a month is going to be huge for you. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, all you have to do is go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill down to $15 a month by going to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege, all one word. Begin your new phone journey at $15 a month today. From phone plans to having a plan, and of course, it's senior day. If Mike Gundy was going to make a move at quarterback and start Maealiuaki Smith, he'd have done it at least 2 weeks ago, right? That's the only logical thing that makes sense. So how illogical would it be for Mike Gundy of all times now, at the point in the season where it's all over, and it's senior day? Would this not be the most Mike Gundy move of all time for him to start Maealiuaki Smith instead of Alan Bowman? And the craziest part to that is I would kind of be offended for Alan Bowman. I think Alan Bowman should have been the starting quarterback all season, right? I have made no qualms about my opinions there. But at the same time, I was able to highlight the improvements that Alan made, at least early on into the season. Of course, spring and fall, when you're not going against the other teams, you don't really know what you have. And that ended up being the case, right? It was a little bit of fool's gold. Of course, he looked good in the pocket in spring and fall in the first couple games because the O-line, D-line was better whenever we actually started playing the live games. So from that aspect, yeah, the Alan Bowman show has been disastrous, frustrating, annoying. So if Mike Gundy was to show the fan base and Chad Weiberg and Dr. Schrum that I'm still engaged, I know this is not going well, here's what I'm going to do to fix it, he'd have put Maealiuaki in weeks ago. But instead, he went with the old hand, not the hot hand, but the old hand, and Alan Bowman. And then after he saw what Garrett Rangel did, and then he saw what Maealiuaki Smith did, he still went back to Bowman. So it doesn't make sense for Maealiuaki Smith to start this game. It would make the most amount of sense for Alan Bowman to get his senior send-off, at least in this particular ball game. But again, it would be the most Gundy move to do it now, right? I mean, we weren't going to make a bowl game, so his 4 games could have started a couple games ago, and it not reflected negatively on his red shirt. So he could have played 4 games, kept his red shirt. We didn't do that. So why would you wait till the second last game of the year to now start the true freshman? Even though he has looked pretty deep in the small sample size of games that he's been able to get in on, he clearly is more suited to run this particular style of offense, right? The Spencer Sanders style of offense, because now we know Casey Dunn doesn't have an offense. Casey Dunn's offense is have a mobile quarterback, right? Or a really good running back that can cover up some of the limitations. Whenever defenses figured out that we have limitations and you can cover up both of those kind of at the same time, it made us so one-dimensional that this is the position that we're in. So therefore, you need a mobile quarterback, right? I'm not sitting here saying that Garrett Rangel was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And whenever he was throwing the ball, it's not like, it was NFL level every throw, but his mobility clearly changed the entirety of the offense. The amount that the guys were willing to do a little bit more, block a little bit more, run a little bit more for Garrett Rangel were fairly noticeable. And I think the same can be somewhat applicable for Maealiuaki Smith, even when we had some of the backups in his most recent appearance. So the sample size has not been big, but it's been good. But this would be, I almost feel like it would make sense for Gundy to be like, oh, I'm gonna surprise everybody now. Nobody will ever expect a true freshman, the second to last game of the season, on senior night. That might be the only layer of this that makes any sense. But of course, it could just be smoke and mirrors. It could be purposeful deception. We don't know. I mean, this whole season has been a mixed bag of crazy. It's just it's been what it is. So I do expect Alan Bowman to start. Now, I do you think it's fair to start anticipating more Maealiuaki Smith than we've seen at any point in time throughout the course of the season? But even I don't believe that Mike Gundy is going to start Maealiuaki Smith. That would just be the most un-Gundy, but almost kind of Gundy thing to do, because it doesn't make sense to do it this late in the year when it literally does not matter anymore. And you've let Bowman suck it up enough this season. You deserve, or he deserves now, to ride out on this senior night. If you were going to start Maealiuaki Smith, it should have been 2 weeks ago. That would have sent the right example to the locker room, to the fan base, to the president, AD, everybody, and it would have been an injection in the offense that would have potentially kept us in more games or maybe even won us a game. So it doesn't make sense, but that is why maybe Mike Gundy's actually going to do it. I don't know. Nothing this season has made sense. So why not? Win in Rome, turn the crazy up another couple meters, right? Yeah. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you're not in Rome, it might be because you don't have the right light. The Skylight is going to be the best in the business. Whenever you're trying to get the right gift, whether gift giving is your thing or not, you might have a different love language. And if you overthink it too long, you might wind up disappointing everybody and not getting nothing at all. This is your time to get the best frame in the business, because digital is everything nowadays, and pictures are going to be digital as well. If you're buying for someone who already has everything, or you're just kind of feeling like they're unpleasable, maybe you have an ex-mother-in-law, maybe you have an ex-wife, I don't know. But what you do have is the ability to have the best gift-giving possibilities today, because Skylight Frames is going to give you everything that you need to be the big winner for your family this holiday season. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. The seamless sharing allows you to invite your friends and family to share photos for free. The Skylight mobile app or email is going to be the way that you can do so. It only takes a snap to set it up from your phone onto the frame all across the country. It's fast. It's the game changer, and the touch screen is as well. The top-rated brand. Over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. Recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and many, many more. Today, as a special, a limited time offer for our listeners, you can get $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight frame. When you go to skylightframe.com/college, that is skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. And perhaps the best way to get hooked up with Skylight Frame is with the monetary gains that you can get with FanDuel. That's right. We couldn't get out of here without talking about America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 hauler is a winner. When you get that tingling sensation in the middle of the game, you can now check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more from the same page where you place those bets from. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today. You can get started with $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 hauler is a winner. Make sure that you go to FanDuel.com today. Do not waste that tingling sensation in the middle of the game ever again. Every moment matters more with FanDuel, because it is the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Before we skedaddle on off of here, we got to talk a little bit more about Cowgirl Basketball in an absolute domination of the University of Central Arkansas. The Bears were a tournament team last season, and they scheduled this game thinking that they're going to have the ability to kind of take down the Cowgirls and good primetime Power 4 level win, but it did not go very well because the Cowgirls shot over 50% from the field and almost 60% from the three-point line. No, I didn't misspeak, nor did I get those numbers backwards. Almost 60% from the three-point arc is good enough to beat any team anywhere in America at virtually any time. I mean, how many March Madness, Cinderella stories do we get because of teams like Butler in the men's game that get really hot and they hit threes out of the gym? And they run you out of the gym with the amount of threes that they're able to make. Not to mention the fact that you had somebody that stepped up again. So now the Cowgirls are 5-0. Game one, we had transfer sophomore Jacie Hoyt drop a 30-burger, and she has another hot game off the bench this time, dropping 16. We had another 19 from the other shooter that can spell ENERGYWhat. So when everyone's focused on ENERGYWhat, now we have Micah Gray, who can pop out for 19, 20, 25 points, as she was just able to do. And then when you have Magassa, when you have Tenin Magassa, a 6'7" center, although do you think that athletically she could do some things that are beneficial as the season progresses? Just having that presence down low is difficult. And from a men's perspective, we remember having some shot blockers, having some guys that forced the point guard or whoever's driving the lane to completely alter their shot. I mean, Moussa Cisse, even recently, was that guy. And it kept us in so many games, and it forced teams to be pretty much one-dimensional. This Cowgirls ball club is not one-dimensional because of having that post presence and also having the capability on the outside that goes beyond just Lior Garzon or ENERGYWhat. You have so many different capable scorers this season. And now the recruiting has a nice little uptick to it. And Jacie Hoyt has her first 5-0 start as a coach in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This team plays really well. And the depth is something that we haven't had previously. I was listening to the live post game on 105.5. And they brought up something interesting that this team plays a lot like the team that went to March Madness a couple years ago in Jacie Hoyt's first year. But this team is way deeper than that team. So they play very reminiscent of the squad that made it to the NCAA tournament. But this squad's even deeper with a legitimate big and more capable scorers than just a couple different girls. So Jacie Hoyt has the Cowgirls absolutely humming right now. I implore everybody to get out there, support the Cowgirls. The Cowboys continue to give us a brand of basketball that we've been missing for a very, very long time. And, of course, wrestling. Wrestling is something that I think all of us, whether you're a big-time wrestling fan or not, can get behind for this season. This is the restoration project. And doing it in year one is going to take a lot of work. But this team is already scoring points at a level that John Smith's teams just haven't done. So there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to get pumped up for. But until the next one, that's all we're going to have for this one. And yes, sorry this is late. I had to re-record the first recording. I did the wrong ad commercials, and it wasn't what I wanted. So here we are with this one. It's later than I wanted, but I appreciate you. That's all we're going to have. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, and I'm very happy that you choose to be here. Go ahead and like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast and people out there. You're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, the funny stuff, funky stuff. You're all of it. Do what you do. Help me out. Hit the stars. Leave a review. All righty, y'all. You know the drill. Later, taters.